Hi, I'm Chris Lee with VandySports.com and the Vandy Sports YouTube channel, here to break down some things that Clark Lea said today in his press conference leading in the Georgia game. So let's get right into that. The thing that led the press conference today was Clark Lea's statement about Raymond Davis. Davis, of course, a starting running back for Vanderbilt, their best running back, and unfortunately Davis has now got a torn toe ligament, and he is done for the year. Now, Ray already had some knee issues. He had been in a knee brace a lot of camp, and so we saw that. We knew health with him could be an issue coming into the year. We also knew that he is a hard-charging type running back. He's a physical guy who doesn't shy away from contact. So you knew this could always happen. It has been something you've heard me voice as a concern coming into the season for all those reasons. I've said Ray Davis is one of the guys that they just cannot afford to lose. And unfortunately, 3 games through the season, that is a reality. So this one really hurts. The Commodores have 4 scholarship running backs. Those are Rocco Griffin, Patrick Smith, James Ziegler III, and Dylan Betts-Pauley, who's really more of a fullback. That's it. That's all the scholarship running backs they have. That's all the running backs they have, period, I believe. I don't think there's even another running back on the team in terms of a walk-on that I remember from fall camp. So anyway, injuries have struck Vanderbilt where they really couldn't afford to have them happen, and you hate that for Ray Davis. He's a good kid. He's a leader. He's a mature player, and you hate to see that for him, but he'll get surgery, and hopefully he will come back. Now, what happens now? The load is going to go to Rocco Griffin and Patrick Smith. Those are the guys that were prominently mentioned in the press conference today. I did ask Clark Lea, are you looking at moving any other guys to running back? He said, no, right now we're happy with the options we have. He mentioned shifty and explosive plays when it came to Patrick Smith. So I think he's a kid. Look, there's always a little bit of a silver lining in an injury like this, that it gives you a chance to develop some more players. And let's face it, this was not going to be a year that Vanderbilt's going to a bowl. It's going to be a year where they need to develop and get better and build for future years. So one good thing in this, you hate to lose Raymond Davis. I mean, again, of all the things you didn't want to happen, that's at the top of the list. But Vanderbilt has got to capitalize from this and take the opportunity to get a young player with some talent. I think he needs to get bigger, but this is an opportunity that they will use to get better for the future. He also liked Rocco Griffin. He said some good things about how he had been dependable, and he liked his habits and his consistency. So I think Rocco Griffin is going to be the guy who gets most of the carries. Not most, but maybe more than anybody else from the way it sounds. But I would also watch for Patrick Smith to see what his role becomes in the absence of Raymond Davis. Now let's talk about the rest of the depth chart. On offense, Ben Bresnahan was listed on the depth chart today. So that's good news, because Ben Bresnahan is maybe one of the 5 best players on the team. He's a very good pass-catching tight end. He is practicing. It sounds as if he could play. Clark Lea, from the way I read his comments, sounds like he'd go either way. So you would hope that they get Ben Bresnahan back soon, but you don't really know. Now, some other things on the depth chart that stood out. Quincy Skinner is now listed as the backup to Will Shepard. He played, I believe, 8 snaps on Saturday. He is ahead of Logan Kyle. I don't remember if that was something they did last week, but that's interesting to note. Now, offensive line has been an issue all year. And as you noticed probably in last game, Michael Warden, the walk-on who got hurt, did not play. Julian Hernandez was the center in that game, and I think went most of the way, if not all of the way. This week's depth chart is listed as Hernandez and then Kevo Wesley at center. No listing of Warden on there at all. And then at left guard, they've got Cole Clemens as the starter, Ben Cox as the starter at right guard. This has been a place where Vanderbilt has subbed and changed some guys. So it looks like they were settled on Clemens and Cox for this game. They went most of the reps last game. On the defensive side, not a ton of changes, but one thing of note, Justin Harris is now listed on the cornerback depth chart. He was hurt all of fall camp and didn't play much at all, or if he did, he was very limited. So we now see Justin Harris as a backup to Gabe Judy Lawley. and that at the other corner spot, Jalen Mahoney listed ahead of Allen George. Now, that's not really a surprise, but they play a lot of corners. In fact, they really distributed the reps fairly evenly between starters and backups, but it looks like they prefer Mahoney to George this week. That's not a surprise. I think that's the way it was last week. Mahoney is probably their best corner, and so that's how they're going to roll this week. One thing I am looking for is what happens at that, I guess it's the star position or the anchor position. I think it's the anchor, where it's listed as a linebacker. Michael Owusu has been getting more playing time than DeRicky Wright. That's how they listed again this week. It's an or situation. Owusu is listed first. I find that generally the player who is listed the first in the or situation gets more playing time. That is how it's been the last few weeks. So that's the other thing that I'm watching on defense. How do reps break down at that position against Georgia? I followed up with Clark on a question about sideline intensity from a couple of weeks ago. He had said some things about trying to assign players and or coaches to really take care of the sideline demeanor and enthusiasm. You saw against ETSU, and I'll read a quote here, I think almost verbatim from Clark. He said, a lot of guys were pulling back after things went wrong that day. So this is one thing that he did to try to address that and also to give guys some responsibility. If you're not playing, you maybe sometimes don't know what you're supposed to be doing. So that was a way for him to assign some things, and he used the phrase prescriptive. They want to be prescriptive in how they run the program, and the more prescriptive he can be, he said, it is quote-unquote filling the gap of the unknown. So I'm interested to see how that goes this week. I thought last week the team didn't seem to show a lot of enthusiasm. Clark Lea mentioned that in the post-game press conference, said that was an issue after halftime. Frankly, here's my takeaway from this. It shows you how tough it is to change the culture there. This team was beaten down by last year, beaten down by some things that happened administratively and off the field a year ago. I think morale on the team was terrible at the end of last season. In fact, I know it was, and I think Clark Lea inherited some of that, and I think it was really a little bit astonishing as he saw really how bad morale had gotten. I think he did some things in the offseason to try to resurrect that. Now, when I was in fall camp, I saw a lot of enthusiasm and energy, and I think he did a good job with that. But as Mike Tyson said one time, everybody's got a plan until they're punched in the face. And when I think Vanderbilt got punched by ETSU, you saw a lot of that old culture surface. You saw the loss of confidence and enthusiasm. So I think this is something that Clark Lea has done to try to address that. Now on to Georgia. That is Vanderbilt's opponent for Saturday. The Bulldogs are basically the consensus number 2 team in the country. The defense is probably the best in America. Clark Lea talked about attacking their defense. He said that they had shared some info when he was at Notre Dame, so there's obviously a mutual respect and relationship in his former job with that staff, and frankly, that's a good one. If you're going to share defensive notes with Georgia's, really since Kirby Smart has been there, been probably a top 5 defense in the country for the last 4 to 5 years running. And so they've got a good scheme. They've got great talent. That's one that you want to model yourself after if you can. He said Georgia is great on the line of scrimmage. I would agree with that. Georgia is exceptionally deep. They'll play 2 guys at just about every position. They can rotate a ton of guys on the defensive line. They're tough to attack there. And to that, Clark Lea said they need to neutralize Georgia's front. Good luck there. Nobody's been able to really do that so far. And he said really the key to beating them is to get the ball to playmakers in space. Again, I think if that's something that was easy to do, you would have seen Clemson and some other teams do it, but nobody's really been able to solve the Bulldogs so far. That's all the thoughts I had from Clark Lea's Tuesday press conference. Be sure and watch us after the game against Georgia. Bruno Reagan and I will have a post-game show. We'll take your questions on YouTube. We'll take them in the War Room. I'm Chris Lee for Vandy Sports, and thanks for watching our YouTube video today.